By late November, as the days grew shorter and frost began to coat the outer walls, the castle's residents would begin preparations. Granaries, stocked with grain from the surrounding lands, were the first line of defence against hunger. Salted meats and preserved vegetables were brought inside from storage to supplement the diet, but rations were carefully measured. Even the wealthiest lords and ladies faced scarcity. The medieval calendar did not offer the luxury of constant abundance, and a long winter could quickly turn food stores into a source of anxiety. Kitchens, often located near the centre of the castle to conserve heat, became bustling hubs of activity as stewards, cooks, and servants worked to turn limited supplies into sustenance. Fires were kept burning in the large hearths, but the smoke and ash often made the air thick and suffocating, a small price for warmth in a drafty hall. The living quarters of the castle were equally challenging. High ceilings and stone walls trapped cold air, and only a few rooms had access to any form of consistent heat. Tapestries and furs were hung to provide insulation, though they could only do so much against the winter chill. Nobles often wore multiple layers of clothing, woolen undergarments, thick cloaks, and fur-lined hoods to ward off frostbite. Common servants, soldiers, and craftsmen fared far worse, relying on meagre blankets and sharing body heat in crowded chambers. The cold was more than a discomfort. It was a threat. Frostbite, hypothermia, and illness were common during harsh winters, and every resident had to adapt to survive. Daily routines changed with the season. The length of daylight dictated work schedules, and many tasks had to be completed before darkness fell. Snow and ice made travel outside the castle walls dangerous, and even small journeys to the surrounding lands could become life-threatening. Couriers, soldiers, and peasants risked injury or death to deliver messages, transport food, or fetch firewood. Inside, life moved slower, but was no less demanding. Soldiers continued to train to maintain readiness, while servants and craftsmen repaired tools, reinforced structures, and tended to animals that remained in stables during the frozen months. Even leisure was minimal. Storytelling and music became essential for morale, providing brief escapes from the monotony and hardship of winter life. The castle's defenses, always a concern, were tested differently during winter. Moats could freeze, turning a defensive barrier into a potential vulnerability. Snowdrifts might obscure the terrain, hiding dangers or giving attackers an advantage if the castle were besieged. Guard rotations became harsher. Soldiers patrolled icy battlements and parapets in near-freezing temperatures, often with numb fingers and stiffened joints. Despite the cold, vigilance could not waver. A castle's survival depended not only on food and fire, but on constant readiness for both human and environmental threats. Illness was another constant threat during the long winter months. The combination of cold, damp conditions, and confined spaces made the spread of disease inevitable. Fevers, coughs, and digestive ailments circulated quickly, often exacerbated by poor nutrition and limited medical knowledge. Physicians were rare, and rudimentary treatments provided little comfort. Herbs and poultices offered some relief, but recovery often relied on the body's own strength. This made communal living in winter both a necessity and a danger. Families and households had to balance the warmth of shared space against the risk of contagion. Food was the central concern of winter life in a castle. The staples were simple: coarse bread made from rye or barley, salted meats, dried legumes, and the occasional preserved fish. Fresh produce was scarce, relying on root vegetables stored in cool cellars or pickled in brine. Spices, luxury items imported from distant lands, were rare and used sparingly to preserve both flavour and value. Meals were communal, often eaten in the great hall around a roaring fire, though even here warmth could be fleeting. Everyone ate according to rank and social status. Nobles enjoyed the richer cuts of meat and more varied dishes, while lower-ranking individuals made do with pottages, bread, and what little protein could be shared. Starvation, while not always immediate, was a looming possibility during particularly severe winters, and rationing was strict and carefully monitored. Despite the hardships, winter also brought moments of ritual and celebration. Religious festivals such as Christmas and Epiphany offered a temporary reprieve from the austerity of daily life. Lords and ladies hosted feasts, often lavish by medieval standards, where roasted meats, spiced wines, and sweetened breads were shared among family and loyal retainers. These occasions reinforced social bonds and provided psychological sustenance, offering hope during the darkest and coldest months. Music, dancing, and storytelling helped lift spirits, though these moments of joy were always framed by the awareness of survival and scarcity. Work continued even in the bitterest cold. Blacksmiths laboured in their forges to maintain weapons, armour, and tools, while carpenters repaired structures weakened by snow and ice. Stables required constant attention. Horses were vital for both transportation and defence, and their survival depended on constant feeding and bedding replacement. Water sources, often wells within the castle or nearby streams, had to be kept from freezing, ensuring a steady supply for drinking and cooking. Every task, no matter how mundane, carried the weight of necessity. Failure could result in discomfort, illness, or worse. Children and the elderly faced particular hardships. Youngsters helped with chores, but were especially vulnerable to the cold, often wrapped in furs and kept close to fires. Elders, whose mobility and resilience were diminished, relied on the care of family or servants. Winter in a castle demanded a communal effort. Every member of the household, from the highest-ranking knight to the lowest servant, played a role in survival. Cooperation was not merely social, it was practical, an essential component of enduring the season. The psychological toll of winter cannot be overstated. Long nights, limited sunlight, and the ever-present chill wore on the mind. Monotony, isolation, and worry over supplies contributed to anxiety and despair. Stories and songs, recited in the flickering firelight, became vital tools for maintaining morale. Some castles maintained small libraries or scriptoria, where monks and scribes copied texts, preserving knowledge and providing mental engagement during the slow months. Faith and ritual also played an essential role. Prayers, blessings, and religious observances offered comfort and a sense of control in an otherwise uncontrollable environment. As winter dragged on into February and March, signs of relief were eagerly anticipated. Snow began to melt, days lengthened, and the threat of frost lessened. Yet the season's hardships left a lasting mark. Castles that endured a severe winter often bore the signs of struggle. Stores depleted, walls battered by ice, and residents weakened by months of scarcity. The lessons learned, however, were invaluable. Winter taught resourcefulness, patience, and the importance of communal effort. Those who survived emerged resilient, better prepared for the unpredictability of the medieval world. In retrospect, life in a medieval castle during winter was a delicate balance between endurance and adaptation. Stone walls offered protection from enemies, but not from nature's relentless cold. Fires and furs provided warmth, but could not entirely stave off sickness or hunger. Food, labour, and vigilance were constantly measured against the harsh realities of frost, snow, and darkness. Yet, through discipline, ingenuity, and communal effort, medieval castles were more than mere fortresses. They were lifeboats in a sea of winter, sheltering the living against both human threats and the relentless force of nature. Dark nights and frozen walls defined the rhythm of life, shaping the routines, relationships, and resilience of all who called the castle home. Survival was never guaranteed, but it was pursued with quiet determination, a testament to the human spirit in one of history's most unforgiving seasons. The castle, in all its grandeur and austerity, stood not only as a symbol of power, but as a sanctuary of survival, a frozen stage where the dramas of endurance, scarcity, and human ingenuity played out in endless repetition.